best performance evaluations that I've ever been given have been the ones that I was involved with.
Hey guys, it's Becky and Billy. Hey, welcome to our weekly Tidbits, where we give you tiny little gems each week to help you in your leadership journey. We have a passion to help leaders get unstuck. So if you're serious about your leadership journey, tune in weekly. Welcome back to Tidbits.
Yay. So we got a good one today, Beck.
We do. So tell us what we got.
Okay, so we're talking about performance management. And we're not sure if your company
has. I thought you said we had a good one. You said we got a good one, and then you said performance management.
Okay, well,
I'm just playing. It's a good one.
No,
it's a good
one. It is good because it's going to make you think today, right? So,
yes.
We did this training this past week with Marcus Buckingham. And if you're not familiar with who he is, I really wasn't prior to some trainings I had been going to in the last month, and he's fabulous. So check him out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, but what he was saying in this training was just really kind of challenging the performance management evaluation process. And I was just talking to my husband a few minutes ago about their mid-year reviews are coming up. And he's like, it's just kind of like you check the box, right? You have the conversations. Someone may or may not get a raise. You're like, continue this, stop this. But it's not really impactful. So he was just maybe trying to talk about changing or challenging the status quo a little bit and implementing more of that real-time coaching. And I know that real-time coaching is near and dear to Becky's heart. So I was like, oh, this is something that we definitely have to talk about.
Yes. I'll say that both of these things are near and dear to my heart. And I'll tell you for a couple of reasons why. So performance reviews, I think they could be valuable if we approach them correctly. And what I mean by that is like, Billy, we were just talking about this. I remember when, gosh, I'm telling my age now, but like many years ago too. No, I'm just playing. Many years ago, like we would have to like compile like all this data for, everybody that's within the organization. And then from there, like you kind of like you back into all this stuff. And then, you have like all these requirements and all this. Oh, well, did you do this? And sometimes the things that I'm asking you if you did, you had zero control over it, right? Because it would come like from the bottom or from the top. And then, it was a piece of everything. But then sometimes like when it would get to you, the actual person that mattered, not that everybody else doesn't matter, but you, right? Then there'd be like, well, what am I actually doing to drive this one way or the other? So I do think like I am very passionate about it. And also I don't know about you guys, but I'm not in the business of wasting time, mine or anyone else's. So I just think like for me, like when I think of doing something just for, one, because we've always done it that way, drives me crazy.
Yes.
But also like just to check in the box, like, do we find value from it? And if no, then let's start questioning, like, is this something worth continuing? And if not, let's change it. And what I'm thinking too is, I don't know about you, Billy, but I do think that there's value in some kind of assessment, call it, whatever you want to call it, but intentionally, right? That it is making an impact, and that people, I almost feel like the word that I want to use, that they're bought into it, which you know what that means? They need to be helped creating their own goals.
Yes,
right? Like,
exactly.
How about that? Like, let's change it a little bit. And I don't even think like we have to make some huge change. I mean, some organizations might want to make some huge changes because, like I said, if it doesn't pertain to me, then if I can't drive it, why should it be tied back to me? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But what I was thinking, and I don't think that I'm the only one that's thought this. I think that, remember, like we had the individual development plans. I know when I say that, many people are like, no, not that either. But hear me out. Like, what I mean is like, even for us, like whether it's personal goals, whether it's business goals, whether it's professional goals, like we should all have goals. but we should be able to be a driver, an impactor in, hey, these are the goals that I want to set. This is what's important to me, and this is how my contribution is going to be. So I kind of feel like we should tweak a little bit of the way that the individual development plan is done. And then from there, like, give people more ownership on what they truly drive. Then you can, lean into what they enjoy doing, what they want to do more of, how they're truly evolving, not just as an employee either. Like, I would love, I don't know, like for me, like for us, like having, the business that we've got too, like if someone continually asks, well, how are some of these things going? I mean, Billy and I talk about it too, but I think that, to address us as holistic people instead of just Becky at work or just Billy, at her day job.
Right.
So again, that's just me kind of going on a rampage here. But what else, Billy? So I know you talked about real-time coaching.
Yeah, so I really like this. And we'll just say up front too that you may not have the capability of changing your performance management system or your performance reviews. So, if you don't, that's okay. We're just giving you something to really think about today, right? And I think this is easy to implement, very, very easy. So if you have to keep your performance evaluations, great. I do think there are value in those if you, like Becky said, if you're very intentional with those. But what he talked about was focusing more on real-time coaching. So, but on the positive things, right? Because he said, and I love this quote, he said, when you make employees conscious of when they're at their best, they will continue at their best, right? So, and I love this because he said, for example, if you see an employee interacting very well with a customer, stop that employee, after they're finished, obviously, but just say, hey, what was going through your mind when you were talking to that customer? Why did you approach that customer that way? What was your thought process? And if you can get employees to understand why they did it, it's going to help them continue to see the value in those things and continue that process. So if you've ever heard of that training program, Give Them a Pickle, like where, have you heard of this? I don't know if you have or not.
No, I've never heard of this.
So it's hospitality training. And he talks about in this process that this server was very upset because she said she never got any tips at all. So she's super upset. So the next day, the trainer said, look, I want you to go to every single customer and say, wow, I really like this customer. I really, really like this customer. So she did. The next day, she did this process. She went to every customer, and she didn't say it out loud. She said it in her mind.
Yeah.
But she was like, you gave me the best customers today. And he was like, no, I didn't. It was just your thought process. It was just
oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, it was so good. He's like, I didn't give you anybody different than I ever would, but you approached that person differently. So I think if we can just, yeah. And the other thing he said, and I told Becky this stood out to me so much, is we should only replay the highlight reel, right? And Becky and I had this conversation before we talked to you guys, but we have a tendency to always focus on that one thing they did wrong, or that one phone call they made that was not great, or whatever that looks like. But instead of that, let's focus on all the great things they do, and then that's going to make them try harder, right? If you're always focusing on the negative, they're going to think, well, why should I bother? Because they don't even see the good that I do.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, really good.
I love that. What's it called? Give them a pickle?
Give them a pickle.
Okay, I love that. I'm going to use that. And I love pickles, so even better. Yeah. The other thing that I was thinking, though, as you were talking about that, is like how it really is. It is, you hear like the whole, like, it's in the eyes of the beholder. Like, it is really about us. So, I think I've told this story a couple of times, like, back in the day, I was a telephone collector. And when I say that, people were like, what? Right? We both were.
Yeah, we both were.
And people were like, what? And I was like, and I loved it. And Billy, did you love it? I didn't think you did.
I was not very good at it.
You know why I loved it, though? Because I looked at each different conversation as somebody else that I got to talk to. And my dad would always give me a hard time. He says that he always would tell me in high school, he even bought me a mug. I wish I could find it, but it said, I'm talking and I can't shut up. So it's true. I talk a lot. But he would always say, like, that was the best job he was like, that's the best job for you, because I just love talking to people. Now, granted, sometimes they didn't love talking to me, but but I think that when you flip your thinking and you take it from the approach of, that they are, I mean, reality is, in those situations, like, most of the time people are either calling in for something, or, they're coming to you for some kind of service. Maybe they're not in the best frame of mind, right? Like, what I always think of, for whatever reason, they may not come into me the best version of themselves because of the previous experience that they've had. And what I like to think of is, it's my responsibility to take ownership on that and to be able to help them out. Again, I'm an Enneagram 2. I'm the helper. That's just who I am. It's what I do. But it helps me to be able to kind of see each of those interactions, like you said, so that, to show up well for them. And then back on your highlight reel, I think that that's great. It makes me start thinking about, too, Billy and I have this gratitude practice, and we talk about this a lot. But just like at the end of the day, or throughout the day sometimes, because I don't know about you guys, but there's sometimes I just can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago, let alone earlier today. So as I go through the day, like, I will keep either a written, or most of the time I keep it on my phone, where I'll write down, like, this is what's happening throughout the day that I'm grateful for. If I don't keep that gratitude throughout the day, by the end of the night, I'm just like, yeah, it was a fine day. But when I keep my gratitude, like when I write those down, or I type those out, it does help me to remember those bright spots. And I think about, this is the same thing. Let's help people to see those good examples by highlighting those examples. So, love that, Billy.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It is. And I think, I think a lot of times we just walk in again to those conversations knowing it's going to be the same thing that we've done before. And
Right.
so what great value in just walking up to catching somebody in the act of saying, wow, you just did a really good job. I just want to compliment you. That's going to go a lot farther for your employee than walking up and, hey, I need to do your performance evaluation. It's mid-year. Come on. I mean,
Right.
and like we said, you will probably have to continue those, and we understand,
For
because
sure.
we do too.
Yep.
But I think that there's a better way to approach those, and to sprinkle in those little moments of, hey, you did a great job today. I watched you during this. Keep that up, and just
For sure.
having those really quick conversations, nothing formal, right? Just, hey, you were doing great today. I just want to let you know.
You could also do that. I know we've been talking a little bit about, like, checking in with your people. Like, that's another great time for you, just to continue to remind them, hey, I saw X, Y, and Z this week. You did a great job on that. So I do think that, and one of the things that I've seen is organizations to do, instead of a mid-year, instead of a yearly review, is more of like a quarterly review, where then I think from an adult learning perspective, it's a lot easier and more manageable for bite-sized pieces, and then for us to truly make impact by the end of the year. So that's another, possibility of what performance management or performance reviews could be. And then I'll talk a little bit about what Billy was talking about, real-time coaching. I think you just have to keep in mind, like, if you're actually coaching somebody, what I say is, just keep in mind that it's going to take a little bit longer, because you want them to see it. It's so if I saw Billy doing something really well this week, and I wanted to do true coaching with Billy about this particular thing, I would not want to be like, hey, Billy, X, Y, and Z was great. Keep it up. That's positive feedback. That's not coaching. Right. So coaching is really about, hey, Billy, you did X, Y, and Z. Tell me a little bit about, like, what's your thought around why you approached it that way. Get her involved in your conversation, so that then she knows how to replicate that, go forward. And she knows that you recognized it, building trust. So that's a little bit, when I hear real-time coaching, like, I can't help but just be like, because real-time coaching can happen. It just is going to take longer, because we as human beings take a little bit longer to process these things, right? So sure, I can come to Billy and say, hey, great job. And she might get, like, I think about like that instant gratification, thanks, right? But if I really talk to Billy to help her understand why that worked well for her and how she felt when she completed that well, then the likelihood that Billy's going to continue to do that will be much stronger than if I just went in and said, hey, great job. Still, there's nothing wrong with giving positive feedback. I want you to. But from a coaching perspective, it does take a little bit longer because really you're pulling out of them what they did well in that scenario too. So sorry, I always got to throw that in there because I think that's important when we talk about coaching. You know what I mean? Like where a lot of conversations, we just assume are coaching. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, why did the coaching community name like this skill coaching? Because there's so many other, and I think it's just like the English language, right? Like we have so many words that mean so many different things. But I do think that it does cause a little bit of confusion sometimes. So I just wanted to talk through that. But if you're curious about learning more about coaching, then I'll tell you guys, this is a book that I would highly recommend, The Coaching Habit. I've read it a couple of times and I'm in the process of it now. And then I'm encouraging Billy to read it too, so that way yep. some of the tidbits that we'll bring to you, maybe we'll pull out some of these concepts and talk about them a little bit more. But I think that that'll help when you think about that real-time coaching or anytime coaching, really. But I just wanted to share that with you guys too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good stuff. And I think to your point, Becky, when you are coaching, you can give somebody feedback, but they may say, hey, I did a great job, but I'm not really sure what I did, but I did a good job, and I think that, and we take that for granted. We assume that people know that they did a good job just doing their job, but they do not know why it was so good or why it was so impactful. So absolutely. I think that coaching might take a little bit longer, but you're going to get the employees buy-in and they're really going to understand, how they made an impact. And so I think that's super powerful.
Yeah. And you too, right? As a leader, if you have several different employees, like, well, let's just take me with my crazy crew here. Let's say that I'm trying to get Billy and Richie and Will. I just say that slow because there's no telling what will come out of my mouth if I don't. But let's say that I'm trying to help each of them to develop skills, but if I don't dig a little bit deeper to understand what's the specific that's making them do that well, then it doesn't do a justice for me to be able to help any of them. So it's helpful for, your direct reports to understand, or even if they're not direct reports, right? So anybody that you're leading, it helps them to do better, but also it helps you to be a better leader yourself. So keep that up too.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is such a fun one, Billy. Like I feel like we could go on and on and on about this one. But we really could. Do, right?
Yes.
I was thinking about this when we first started talking about this, like for a long time. Well, I would say I still have a folder, and I would say it's probably not too far away from where I sit right now, that has all of my performance reviews in it. And I was literally thinking the other day, like I have went back and read some of them, and I'm like, what does this even mean? I mean, sure, there's some good stuff in some of them, but most of it is just like, what? Like, was this helpful for me? So let's see if we can rethink this performance management process. Let us know your all's thoughts. Whether it be about coaching, whether it be about, what does your company do when it comes to performance appraisals or the process? Like, share with us. We'd love to hear what you're up to, and curious to hear all of the things about that as well. And coaching, right?
Yeah.
Continue to have that conversation with us all day, every day.
Every day. We love that. That's our favorite.
Well, it's my favorite for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. So, Billy, anything else just as we wrap up that we want to make sure to cover? We got to make sure like, share, subscribe.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, all the places. forwardprogress.com, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And your call to action this week is to see if you can maybe think about performance evaluations a little bit differently. So, and involve your employees. Like Becky said earlier, I think the best performance evaluations that I've ever been given have been the ones that I was involved with, like brought in and said, hey, let's develop these together. Let's look at your goals for the year and then work on this together. So that's another conversation, another great way to coach your employees too. So think about that too.
Agree. Totally agree. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.